What's up, peeps? I am back for another video. We're gonna continue on with the Bill and Ted movies. We only got one more. We're talking about the newest Bill and Ted, which came out, I guess it would be 2 years ago. Going on, Bill and Ted Face the Music came out in goddamn fucking plane. Came out in 2020, and I remember hearing about this because this was because you got to remember, Keanu just was on that renaissance pretty much after. I mean, even a little bit before John Wick, but definitely after John Wick. So you know, this was like, and he felt like we're gonna revive Bill and Ted, and I think here's my thing with this movie. Bill and Ted Face the Music. I think I liked it at the time was because of how bad Hollywood had been up until even and that up until that point where so many franchises being brought back and then they fucked it up. So Bill and Ted Face the Music coming out and it just was done decently, but on rewatch it doesn't hold up. It's not a bad movie. I would still say I would recommend it, and if you can get past certain things, I guess it's likable, and I do like the final performance in the end. But I do have some issues with it. One of the biggest is it almost pretty much undoes. It's like a giant retcon in two ways. One, they retcon basically that it was his daughters who wrote the song, which I don't have a problem with. Like the daughters isn't even really my problem with the movie. Because I think Ted's daughter at points overacted, and there were some scenes she was fine, but then there were some scenes, I would probably say more on that side, where it was just she was overacting or she was trying too hard. But that, and then basically saying that the song we got in the end of Bogus Journey didn't unite the world. I had big problems with that. I don't like that because it's almost done just because you have to justify this movie happening. But aside from all those points, I think it's fine. Bill and Alex Winters and Keanu Reeves still have chemistry. So there's in the scenes they're on together are probably the best parts of the movie. And the scene where they talk to their older selves, I actually think is the best scene in the whole movie. But from besides that, it's a fine movie. You can tell there's heart in it, and that's why I'm not gonna go in too much. I do have some gripes, but and I will probably not go out of my way to watch this one as much comparative. Like, I would probably mainly only watch the Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey. But this movie is fine. And ultimately, it came out at a time. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Came out at a time, just because how bad franchises were being brought back and then they're fucking it up. So it was nice to see one where there was at least some love. But I like, and I will keep going more into that because I do have some big issues though. But so the premise of the movie pretty much is they didn't unite the world, and time and space are starting to collapse. So you're seeing figures from certain historical points being brought to our world or different time zones. Um, and we meet Kelly, who's the daughter of Rufus, who I actually think she's a solid character, even though you only see her for a couple of scenes. Um, Pretty much tell Bill and Ted that they have to make the song in like I think 7 hours before the Earth destroys. But Rufus's wife, who's like the leader of that world, sends a robot to kill him instead because she doesn't think they'll succeed. And basically, while this is happening, Bill and Ted's daughters are putting together a band. It's in a way their parts are almost like a mini Excellent Adventure remake, but but I think in a way it's in a good way because they don't flat out like steal moments. There's a little couple of scenes where you can see the callbacks, but it's still its own thing. But so basically it's a race against time to yeah. And then other video news, I will be tomorrow. Cannot wait. I'm going to be reviewing Evil Dead 2. I fucking love Evil Dead 2. To me, that's my favorite of the trilogy, so I can't wait to talk about that tomorrow. And then Friday, I'll be doing the Goonies. So Um, that's my plan so far for the next few days. But today, like I said, I'm reviewing this movie and about to kick off the review. So. So the movie opens up. We see Bill and Ted performing at the wedding. We get like a little rundown, like kind of like what they've been going on really since the second movie. This is kind of where I start, and maybe I just, like I said, I mentioned when I originally watched it, I was a bit more softer on it, but definitely, I already don't really like that they retconned Bogus Journey's ending. Because of the three movies, I think that's my favorite performance still is from that second one. And you look at how the world was united, and that was definitely the intention at the time. But I get it. They have to do something to justify this movie existing. But in a way, it really didn't have to. But I get it. There's some people who really love this movie and use it as an example of like how to bring something back. I'm in the middle on it now, at least the second watch. So basically, yeah, they didn't get successful off the Wild Stallions, and then basically it goes through their career. Like, yes, slowly they started, you know, just more and more losing fans. The band broke up, and they're now performing like I think at a wedding. To I think it's Ted's brother. And she's getting married. He's getting married to Missy, which I don't think they needed. They did not need that. If they, I get it. You want to have because the running gag with Missy was, she was with Bill's dad in the first one, and then she's with Bill. I mean, Ted's dad. It was this one was just weird. It just felt like you should have just had it to where she was still married to Ted's dad or something. I think that's the only tweak with her character, because especially because you only see her in this scene in the wedding, and then she's gone for like the rest of the movie. Maybe she shows up in like the audience in the end, but I could be wrong. But I think that's it of her though, really. Anyway, so it's just like you brought her back just to make a gag, but now she's with this person. You didn't need to do that. But so after that, Ted's dad pretty much tells them like, you guys got to start doing better and got to get actual jobs because this music thing isn't working. Then Kelly shows up, and I'll admit the scenes where they're traveling are actually really good because you gotta understand the first one was in '89, and I think the second one even was in '91, and it probably still didn't have that big of a budget. Even though I think the time travel scenes looked fine, especially for the '80s and stuff, but I'll admit the time travel scenes in this look really good. I think that's probably some of the best scenes are like when they're traveling in the phone booth. So, and then Kelly's daughter has her own like booth. So she takes them up, where that utopian society is, and Rufus's wife, which is Kelly's mom, and basically they send Bill and Ted they have to write the song because the world is dissolving and it's collapsing. They only have about, I think, specifically 7:17 p.m. So 7 hours, give or take, still. And then when they time travel, they find there's a scene before where you might recognize the therapist lady. She's one of the, I don't remember her exact name because I haven't watched The Office in a bit, but not The Office. She was in Workaholics. That's what I got the wrong show. But yeah. But yeah, so there's a scene where Bill and Ted take the princesses to therapy, which I thought was a little bit funny. And And that the therapist lady is great. I can't think of her name right now, but she's in the Workaholics, which I fucking love her in that. So Bill and Ted have to go. They time travel and they find out. This is when they first see themselves, which I think those parts are another favorite of mine in this movie. The scenes where they see themselves, even though I've seen criticism from some people as like it's like they're kind of deconstructing them even more. But I get that criticism, but I don't think it's done to destroy them. I found it funny personally. I mean, it's like they already kind of did that anyway with the bad Bill and Ted from the second one. I think that was just that on steroids in this. So they find themselves and they find out that the princesses divorced them and that their kids don't talk to them. And then Bill and Ted have to stop that. And while this happens, Kelly goes back to her mom, but her mom introduces this robot named, what's the robot's name? It's a super robot that Dennis. That's what sorry, my light is weirding out. Sorry. But, so Dennis, is introduced to, when I first watched it, I thought it was going to be like this big villain, but no, it kind of becomes a joke after a while. So Kelly has to try to stop it. So she goes back to Bill and Ted's house, but they're not there still. They're still out time traveling in Rufus's booth. So their daughters go and take Kelly's booth to try to get the ultimate thing. Kind of like a little mini, you know how they did the original. We got instead of a reporters to write a song. So they get Jimi Hendrix, which I think the actor who played him was fine for this movie. Louis Armstrong, Mozart, and Ling Lun. And Grom, who's a drummer in prehistoric times. And then, and I guess they find a Kid Cudi, who his scenes are some of the worst scenes in this movie. And it's not just because I don't like his music either. It's just, I didn't get what, I guess jumping ahead, there's a scene where he's like super smart, and I get what they were going for. It's the gag. Oh, he's this rapper guy, but let's make him like super intelligent. I get that's what they were going for, but it just came off kind of cringy. And then Bill and Ted travel again, and initially seems everything seems fine. Like they're popular musicians, and they have like a mansion, and their future selves tell them like, oh, and then they give them the song and everything, and they're about to leave. Dave Grohl shows up, which I thought this part was kind of funny. Then it turns out they were slobs and their life wasn't good either. So the future selves try to kill the present selves, but they manage to escape while Bill's dad gets vaporized and sent to hell. Which, I can agree with this. Another criticism I watched. Someone said that this feels like a mesh of the two movies in a way, and it really does. Like, Bill and Ted have to stop. You have that aspect from the first one. They gotta do this thing to prevent, bad thing from happening. But then there's a point where they get sent to hell. They gotta get death, and they gotta get out. And then there's a big final performance. I understand, but it does. I gotta agree with that criticism to an extent. Like, it does just feel like it's like they took the first two movies and just threw it in a blender. So they then travel to 2067, and this is before that they travel to a little bit further in the future where they see they're past their future selves again, but this time they're all ripped. This is like the scenes you saw in the trailer, like where they're in prison and they're doing like a prison song, which I thought that part was kind of funny. Like the Bill and Ted stuff is great, and it feels like, for me personally, especially Alex Winters, he still feels like, yeah, he just looks a bit older, but he still feels like the same, Bill from the other two movies. Even, Keanu, who hadn't obviously played that role for a while. I thought he still was fine. It was weird seeing him without a beard at this age, but that's fine. But I still think like if their chemistry is really great. It's not like Jay and Silent Bob reboot where even the chemistry wasn't there, to be honest, with like Jay and Silent Bob. At least Bill and Ted still have chemistry. So like their parts are like some of the best parts. But like the scenes with their daughters and stuff is okay, but it like I said, it's just kind of a mini take on the first movie, but just with the daughters. And I'll admit it's especially another reason I think I really liked the movie at the time was because they were really for their dads, especially considering how Hollywood the last few years have been. You can't have like really any positive father figure. There are some, but you got to really look. So it was nice to see that they weren't there just to shit on them. So I thought those scenes were good. But yes, they after getting the after getting Ling Long, they end up getting vaporized by Dennis. Then we get probably the best scene in the movie, where Bill and Ted travel to 2067, find their really old selves on their deathbeds. Um, they give them the song by Preston and Logan, who that's their daughters. I'm just gonna spoil that part. But before I get to that more in depth, I do really like the scene. Like to see their older selves. God damn, it's fucking light. Sorry, guys. Um, it was kind of cool to see their older selves give like them, themselves a pep talk. I actually really like that, and that's why I said it's like my favorite scene in the movie because you could tell like this scene had like the most heart in the entire film. So yeah, Bill and Ted leave with the USB, but then they Dennis confronts them, but Dennis reveals that he killed their daughter and sent them to hell. So they smash the USB and then get sent to hell. Then they all get back together, and then the scene where they talk to Death was okay, but then it wasn't because it turns out Death got too, I guess, greedy, and then Bill and Ted sued them for the name Wild Stallion. So there was a lot of bad blood. So Death refused to talk to him. So the daughters go in to kind of mend the fences, which was fine. Like the girl who played Ted's daughter, like I mentioned, she's fine in some scenes. Like I think like this scene where they're actually all together, I actually think it's probably some of her best scenes in the movie. But then there's some parts where she just is overacting. She is old, like it just, and maybe she just feels like she has to get it down, but it just didn't come off natural at all. It came out forced in a lot of scenes, to be honest. But it wasn't to the point where she was annoying or anything. It was noticeable. So after successfully mending the fences, they all leave. They get back to the present, but the world is still being destroyed. And unfortunately, they have to do the concert on Interstate 210. And so this is where we get the revelation that Thea and Billy are Preston and Logan. And this, I don't like this. And it's not because, the daughter thing either. If they were sons, I'd have the same issue. You're retconning that. So they knew. I'm supposed to now accept that they knew. Because they pretty much referenced you're going to bring the group together in the first Bill and Ted. It's a giant retcon. And in general, I have a problem with retcons because, it undoes a lot of things. Like, it doesn't. This one doesn't ruin the movie. It's a noticeable retcon. So while Bill and Ted have to to stop the rupture from happening while the girls have to get the band together. So they managed to get everybody to, because they have to, everyone has to perform the song to stop the from time from being destroyed. So they end up doing it, which I actually like this part of the movie. It was really beautiful, you know, and everything goes back to normal. There you go. Bill and Ted Face the Music is a decent entry. I largely liked it. I liked it a lot more than Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which in my opinion falls apart like in the middle of it. I have there, like I said, there's fundamental issues I have with this movie, but it doesn't ruin it. I think it's a solid watch. It's only an hour and a half. If you want to, I'm not like, if I'm in the mood to maybe watch Bill, I'm mainly gonna just watch the first two. But if I want to like just watch it just to complete the trilogy, I'll watch it. It's not the worst thing in the world, you know. Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves still got it. Like they feel like it almost like it's just like a glove almost. Like they, especially for Alex Winters, like he when he stepped back into Bill, like he's felt like Bill again. You know, and Keanu too. Yeah, his voice is a bit different, but it still works. And you know, like I said, the film has heart. You could tell they genuinely wanted to do something nice for the fans. Yeah, even if I had like my criticisms, I can not necessarily give it a pass, but I can respect that. You know, you at least didn't make this and say fuck you. You know, it's just, you know, I because fundamentally there's just going to be issues in movies. You know, I'll admit I didn't care for the robot. I think Dennis should have stuck to him being like the antagonist or something. It started off funny, but then it just this like his humor worked in some scenes, but then there's some it just didn't work for me. But this movie works largely. That's why I'm gonna probably give it like a 6 out of 10. But I think another reason with a movie like this, I don't think it's as good as the first two. If they took too long to make it, what made the first two, Bill and Ted, especially the first one. The first one came out in '89. You still had that leftover from hair metal, rock and metal. Actually, were still a big genre. That's why, like, in a similar fashion, I don't think a Wayne's World 3 would work. Rock and metal is just not the in. Sorry about that. Rock and metal is not the in genre right now. That's another reason because like Bill and Ted have always had that rock and roll, especially the first like two. You know, they'd always had like, you know, the references to certain bands and stuff. Like they do that a little bit in this one, but this one is in 2020. By that point, yeah, rock and metal is just not the big genre anymore. So it hurt the film to a degree. But also, like I said, I don't really love the whole undoing of Bogus Journey just to have this movie, but I understand they needed something to justify this film happening. So, and it was for the fans. That's why I don't fully hate it. It's a fine entry. You know, you could tell there was some care put into it, and I thought the final song was beautiful. So, I still think the second one is better, but I do like the performance in the concert in this one. So, I would recommend it if you like Bill and Ted, and if you want to be a completionist, I would say watch it. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's only an hour and a half. There are some funny bits. It's there are definitely some weak bits. I think, like I mentioned, I thought Samara Weaving did actually a really good job. Who I had only seen her in I didn't see Ready or Not, but I think I'd seen her in another movie, and she was pretty good in that. I thought in this she was actually really good as Bill's daughter. I thought she was probably the best of the daughters. Ted's daughter there was some scenes she's fine, but then some scenes where it just feels like she's overacting a bit. But it's tolerable, and I like their little adventures somewhat, and like the interaction between historical figures. Well, it's not as good as like the first As Excellent Adventure, but I still thought it was fine. So I would recommend it if you just want to be a completionist. And it's an hour and a half. Just there might be some stuff you may not like, but you can at least know the Bill and Ted parts are like the best parts of the movie, easily. Especially the scene where they talk to their older selves. That was beautiful. Not gonna lie, that was really awesome. So, but overall, I really enjoy this franchise. You know, it's not like a normal franchise I like, but just to do, especially that original Bill and Ted, Excellent Adventure. Not your typical time travel movie. You know, it's not like a Back to the Future or a lot of those types where not as like Back to the Future, but where it's explicitly about time travel. Where the Bill and Ted, there is a time travel element, especially the phone booth, but it's still about just two dudes trying to you know fix their book reporter, and the second one try to save their lives. Like, and just the chemistry between Alex Winters and Keanu is what makes these movies. Even in like I mentioned in this review with this one, overall, like the chemistry with the two is good in all of them. So heavily recommend. Definitely the first two, definitely, and even Face the Music. So, but tomorrow, Evil Dead 2. I cannot wait. Evil Dead 2 is my favorite in the trilogy, so that's gonna be funny because it has that because Army of Darkness is fun, but there is horror in it, but it's a lot more on the comedic side. Whereas I think Evil Dead 2 has that nice balance. Like there's comedic scenes in it, but you have the birth of the Ash. We all know chainsaw hand, one liner, boomstick carrying Ash, but they do have that seriousness. That first Evil Dead, it's not super serious, but it's dark and pretty more on the scary side. So I think Evil Dead 2 has that nice balance, and Bruce Campbell is great in it. So cannot wait to do that one tomorrow. But other than that, I'm gonna cheers and peace out. But as usual, fuck Warner Brothers, fuck Disney, fuck LeBron, fuck Colin Kaepernick, fuck Seth Rogen, fuck Kevin Smith, and fuck the Biden administration. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.